Hello, I'm Sandra Gasson, and this webinar is following on from our Introduction to Interoception webinar and will focus on interoception and temperature and pain. It's one of 5 specific areas that Sue and I have recorded as part of a series of webinars to support autistic adults. Sue and I have both received training from Kelly Mahler, and the links to her work and further resources are referenced at the end of this webinar. So within the Autism Team at Kent County Council, we've predominantly worked with autistic adults without a learning disability, and we've based this webinar generally on supporting this client group. So the webinar may not be suitable for everybody. However, the strategies could be adapted for anyone that is struggling to interpret their body sensations and emotions. With reference to this particular webinar, we would recommend a visit to your doctor if you have any concerns around your ability to regulate your temperature or pain, so that your doctor is aware also, and where you can receive any medical attention if needed. So now we're going to have a look at the webinar slides, and I'm going to turn off my camera because I understand that this will help reduce any interference. It's important that you have a basic understanding of interoception and what it means. This webinar needs to be watched after you have watched the Introduction to Interoception webinar. So if you have not seen this one yet, please click on the link above and watch this webinar first, and then come back to this one, which will focus on temperature and pain. It may be useful for you to have a pen and notebook with you, as there's a short activity during the webinar. You might also want to write some notes, or you may have some queries or questions from the webinar which you may want to research later. So you would have learnt that interoception helps us manage the way that we feel by prompting us to take action based on the body sensations that we notice. The majority of us recognise these sensations and have good interoception awareness. The purpose of this webinar is to focus on temperature and pain, and therefore we will look at the skin and muscles. To help you notice these areas of your body and to encourage you to practice to think about how your skin and muscles can feel, and also for you to be able to describe these. If you have good interoception awareness, you will not have any problems with recognising if your body feels hot or cold. Good interoception awareness is vital for us to manage our body temperature. For example, have you ever been in a room with a group of people and the temperature is set at what believed to be quite a comfortable temperature? You'll notice that some people in the room feel quite comfortable, others perceive the room as chilly, and a few people are sweating and removing their jumpers, and their faces could be red as they just respond to the heat. So how could it be that the temperature is the same and everyone in the room experiences it differently? Interoception awareness helps you manage the way that you feel by prompting you to take action based on the body sensations you notice. This slide is an example of interoception awareness around temperature. The first step is to practice noticing how your body feels. So in this case, recognizing the sensations as you are sweating, you may notice that you are perspiring. You may feel that your armpits are wet. You may notice a wet patch on your clothing around your armpit area. Your forehead may also feel wet to touch, and the cheeks on your face may also look red and feel hot to touch. The second step is to connect what that sensation means. So noticing when you're sweating or perspiring, and recognizing this sensation as your body is telling you that it's getting too hot and needs to cool down. Kelly Mahler refers to these steps as the emotion, but we feel the word sensation fits better for the people that we work with. The third step is to take action. where you notice your body is sweating and your armpits and your forehead is wet. This may also be alongside other body sensations, such as you notice your face cheeks feeling hot to touch. The important thing here is that you have noticed that your skin is hot and perspiring, and that these sensations are signaling you to the need to cool your body down with the most appropriate response. For example, you might need to remove your outer clothing, take a cold drink, open a window, just until that discomfort has faded and your body is at a comfortable temperature. This example is of Peter, a young autistic man whose mother reported would go out in the snow with his shorts and t-shirt on when everyone else was wrapped up with coats, scarves and gloves. His fingers and his face and his lips were often turning blue, but he did not notice and he could not explain that he felt cold. So Peter did not notice his body sensations. He didn't notice his face, his lips being cold and turning blue, and nor was he able to connect these to feeling cold. Therefore, Peter had no awareness to take the action by putting on a jacket, a hat or gloves. So if we're working with people like Peter, we need to help them notice the body sensations, but then also connect the body sensations to the most appropriate action. This webinar is focusing primarily on the body sensations coming from the skin and muscles, noticing and connecting these sensations and taking the appropriate action. So, it's important to be aware of all of the areas our body is covered by skin and all the body parts. So if you're supporting someone, it'll be important that they start to notice how their skin can feel. Can you or the person you're supporting describe feelings around your skin and how it can feel at different times of the day and during different activities? So let's look at step 1 in more detail. Firstly, it will be important to be aware of all of the areas the skin covers on the body. Our skin is the outer covering of our body and it guards the underlying muscles, bones, ligaments and internal organs. It covers the whole of our body and it's easy to see as it's external on our bodies. So if you're supporting someone and they're struggling to identify their skin, if it's appropriate, ask them to show you the skin on their lower leg, their arm or their foot. You could then ask them or the person you're supporting to describe those sensations around these areas by asking them how their skin can feel. This slide is where we're going to look at step 2, focusing on some of the words that you could use to describe how the skin can feel. Anything is okay, as this is quite personal to each of us, even if it's an unusual word to you, the person you're supporting. Here is where you may need your pen and paper. Try writing down some words now. If you might feel that by pausing the webinar to help you write down some words, that's fine. Think about it, take your time. If you can't think of any words, that's okay. So just as an example, how does your skin feel when you lightly stroke your arm? Does it feel tickly? Could you use that word to describe it? Did you come up with any of these words? Warm, hot, cold, sweaty, itchy, sore, too much, dirty, clean, dry, wet, tickly, greasy, goosebumpy. The word too much can be used here as a describing word for the skin. This describes This describes the feeling that many autistic people report when they're experiencing sensory overload with a particular body part. For example, too much touch or too much sensory input. It could be when someone is experiencing a hug or when they're trying to wear certain clothing. Too much or similar words or phrases are helpful to include when trying to build a person's ability to self-regulate their sensory needs and maximize sensory comfort independently. Interoception plays a role in helping the person feel or notice the discomfort, which is then the clue for the person to take action. It is a crucial part of learning to have good interoception awareness and to be able to have words that you or those you're supporting feel comfortable to use, and words that describe how these body parts can feel to you. So if you were struggling to think of any words to describe how your skin can feel, you could try some practical things. This slide shows some experiments that you may wish to try. For example, you could exhale a long ha breath into the skin of your arm or your hand. Now stop. How does this make your skin feel when you stop? You could rub your hands back and forth for 10 seconds and then put your hands on your skin, on your arm or your leg. How does that make your skin feel? You could hold an ice pack against different parts of your body. How does this make your skin feel? Remember that even if a body sensation is uncomfortable, for example, itchy or sore, they can be really helpful sensations, as these sensations in the body part are giving us important clues as to what we need to do. For example, Sally's skin on her arms and back and chest felt really itchy and sore when she put on a woolly jumper, so she was keen to remove and replace this for a cotton long sleeve cardigan. So this slide looks at connecting the sensations to the action that we need to do. For example, when working with Peter initially, we supported him to notice his body sensations, but then also to connect his body sensations to the action he needed to do to form an appropriate response. For example, at step 1 and step 2. Peter was then able to explore activities that made his skin feel warm, hot, cold, sweaty, itchy, clean, dirty, wet and dry. And after completing a variety of activities, and with much practice, Peter was able to write down words that described these sensations. Peter started to be able to connect these sensations to the changes in his body temperature and then started to identify that he was feeling hot and cold. Peter was then able to consider the most appropriate action he needed to do in that situation. For example, when he experienced sensations that made him feel cold and chilly, he was able to select the most appropriate clothing. Peter was additionally supported with prompts, for example, where he was encouraged, we encouraged him to download a weather app on his mobile phone, which he checked prior to going out, just to remind him to consider wearing the most appropriate clothing for the weather. With lots of practice, Peter has been able to notice how hot and cold feels on different areas of his body and connect these sensations. He has now been learning strategies to help him action what he needs to do. For example, he is now noticing when he's feeling too hot and perspiring that his armpits and his forehead feel wet, and that this makes his clothes wet and smell, and that the action he needs to do is to take to make his body feel cool by having a shower, washing and drying and using deodorant. Now, this has been really particularly important for Peter as he struggled to understand why people have declined to sit next to him. Peter was keen to make friends, and understand how his body temperature was affecting his ability to appropriately carry out essential personal care tasks. And this has been a major factor in Peter feeling more connected, not only to his own body, but to socialising with his peers. Step 3 is practical things you could try to either reduce or increase your body temperature. It will depend on the individual as to which strategies might be supportive, but the most important thing is to encourage interoception awareness so that you recognise your own body sensations when you feel that your body temperature is changing. So by following and practicing steps 1 and 2, so that you are mindful of how different activities can make your body temperature change, and making a note and letting those who support you of the words that describe these sensations. This could be used in conjunction with prompts and reminders, such as weather apps that tell you the temperature outside, and a temperature chart that could assist you to select the most appropriate clothing. We have an example of one of these in our resources at the end of the webinar. So whether you're implementing practical things to reduce or increase your body temperature, it will be particularly important to try to use strategies from step 1 and step 2 to help you or the person you're supporting to recognise and notice when their body temperature is changing, and to support them to consider their own personal solutions alongside any environmental considerations, as this will assist them to better self-regulate their body temperature and start to take action themselves and to feel more comfortable. But the most important thing is to practice recognizing these sensations of how your body temperature can change and how this makes you feel, and being able to describe these sensations so that you can start to act on them. So remember to think about the 3 steps and connecting them together. We've looked at step 1 and step 2. So step 1 again, how does your body feel? Step 2, recognizing the sensation and what this means, and to use one of your describing words. Step 3, take action. This is where you will select appropriate solutions to either reduce or increase your body temperature so that your body is at a comfortable temperature. So again, step 1, this time we're focusing on the muscles. It's important to be aware of where your muscles are on your body. Body parts such as the muscles are much harder for people to be able to understand as they're internal and can't be so readily seen as our external body parts. If you are supporting someone, and if it's appropriate, ask them to show you where on their body their muscles are. Can you or the person you are supporting describe sensations around these muscles and how they can feel? This slide is focusing primarily on the body sensations coming from the muscles and noticing these sensations when the muscles feel different, and the need to be able to act on those sensations to ensure you remain comfortable and safe. This is where we're going to look at the words you use to describe how your muscles can feel. Anything is okay. As we've said before, this is very personal to you, and even if it's an unusual word to you or to the person you are supporting. Here again is where you may need your pen and paper to write down some of those words. Again, you might wish to pause the webinar just to have some time to think. So maybe you could think about how your muscles feel when you've done some physical activity. Do they ache? Could you use that word to describe them? So let's look at some more words. You could use possibly words like these: tense, tight, loose, heavy, sore, fidgety, wiggly, antsy, fast, slow, still, hot, burning, shaky. Did you come up with any of these words? It's a crucial part of learning to have good interoception awareness, to be able to have words that you are comfortable to use that describe how your muscles can feel to you. So if you were struggling to think of any of those words, you could try some practical things. Perhaps you could try sitting in a chair with your feet flat on the floor. Shake your legs up and down as fast as possible and see how this makes the muscles in your legs feel. Or someone else could try gently squeezing and massaging your arms and shoulders. How does this make your muscles feel? Or you could do 5 super fast jumping jacks. How does this make your muscles feel? Remember that even if a body sensation is uncomfortable, for example, tight muscles, it's a really helpful sensation, as the sensation the muscles are giving you are important clues on what you need to do to stay healthy and feel good. Our brain will take all of these sensations coming from all the different areas of our body and use them as clues to help us understand exactly how we're feeling. So if you can use a word to describe the sensations of the feelings in your muscles, for example, being heavy, sore, or achy, then you can start to connect these sensations to the most appropriate action you need to feel comfortable. This is an example of inaccurate interoception in pain responses. If someone is oversensitive to their internal pain sensations, they may feel a little cut as excruciating pain. If, on the other hand, they are undersensitive to the internal pain sensations, they may not notice if they break their arm. So in other words, some people may notice internal body sensations, but process these inaccurately. So a little interoceptive sensation feels like a lot, or a lot of interoception sensation feels like a little. So people can be both under and oversensitive to internal body sensations in the same way as for other senses. Mary, for example, had accidentally pricked her finger while sewing and was overwhelmed by the pain that this had caused her. She jumped up and down and was crying and shouting. Whereas Ben was walking around with a broken arm, having fallen during a game of football, until his mother had noticed his swollen, painful red arm, which was not until 2 weeks later before he got to get this checked out at hospital. So if we're working with people on this, we need to support people to notice the body sensations, but then also to connect the body sensations to the most appropriate action they need to do to be comfortable. So this is an example of Tim working for long hours on his computer. Tim has noticed that his muscles in his neck, back and shoulders are feeling slow, aching and heavy. He's been able to connect these sensations, the slow, aching and heavy feelings, to feeling tired and the action he needs to take to make his muscles in his body feel more comfortable. Tim takes action by getting up and taking a break, by going for a lunch break, where he's changing his body position and posture. Tim has learnt that alongside noticing these body sensations, he is now going to set himself prompts on his computer to help him remember to take regular breaks throughout the day. This could also be set up on a mobile phone as a prompt if you need to take regular breaks throughout the day to remind you to think about taking or changing your body position and posture. So in this example, Tim's brain has gathered these sensations. So in other words, all the clues to help him notice that he was feeling tired. This is how your interoception system works. So Tim noticing that his muscles are slow, aching and heavy whilst he's working at his computer and that he is tired results in Tim taking action by getting up and moving around and taking regular breaks at work. Now this step comes with lots of practice, especially if you are learning to recognize the body sensations in your muscles and learning how to describe these. Step 3 will depend on the individual as to which strategies might be supportive, but the most important thing is to encourage interoception awareness so that you recognize your own body sensations when your body is experiencing pain and discomfort. So following and practicing step 1 and step 2 so that you are mindful of how some of the challenging activities and how these can make your body feel uncomfortable, and making a note and letting those who support you of the words that describe these sensations. It will be particularly important to try and use the strategies from step 1 and step 2 to help you notice and recognize discomfort and to be able to tell the person supporting you that you have noticed discomfort in your body. And this will show that you have mastered steps 1 and step 2 and assist you to better self-regulate your discomfort levels by putting in the most appropriate solution so that you are more comfortable and that you're keeping yourself healthy and safe. When you start to notice that you are experiencing pain and discomfort, it would be important that you are able to tell somebody and that you're able to notice if the pain and the discomfort is getting more or less. It may be useful for you to use a scale to measure the pain and discomfort that you're in, and that you or those that are supporting you can monitor this so that they can check whether you need to seek medical help if the pain and the discomfort does not subside. But the most important thing here for you to practice recognizing is those sensations of how your body can feel at different times and during different activities, and how this makes you feel, and being able to describe these sensations so that you can start the most appropriate response. This is a pain scale that could be used to support somebody to help you measure your pain levels and discomfort levels. This is a temperature chart for those of you who might need prompts to check what type of clothing you need in relation to the weather. And it could be used alongside other weather apps or other types of technology such as Alexa devices to check the weather outside prior to you going out. This template could support you to describe how your skin feels during a variety of different activities. And this template could also support you to describe how your muscles may feel after a variety of activities. This brings me to the end of this webinar, Interoception Awareness and Temperature and Pain, which has focused primarily on the skin and muscles. We hope that it has given you some insight into interoception and that you will go on to practice those 3 steps. We'd also encourage you to explore the resources here on this slide by Kelly Mahler and to look at our other webinars in our series, which will include interoception and anxiety, interoception and eating and drinking, interoception and toileting, and interoception and sight and sounds. Thank you for listening.